Welcome to today's episode of the Declutter Hub podcast, your channel for super easy, no-nonsense advice on how to declutter and organise your home. Please welcome your hosts, professional organisers Ingrid Jansen and Leslie Spellman.
Hello and welcome listeners to episode 87 of the Declutter Hub podcast. I'm Ingrid.
And I'm Leslie.
If you have clutter and want to sort it out, this is the show for you. Now, in today's episode, Leslie and I are talking about things to avoid when decluttering your home. In our podcast, we talk a lot about what you need to do when you're decluttering. So today we're going to flip it around and we're going to tell you all the things you shouldn't do when decluttering. And it's quite a little list, isn't it, Leslie?
It is. I know. I mean, some of these are going to be really obvious, but there will absolutely be things that people are doing all the time that are kind of sabotaging their decluttering efforts. So we're not talking about when you're actually decluttering things not to do. We're talking about how to avoid stuff actually coming in the first place, really, aren't we?
Yes, for sure. And we're writing and preparing this podcast, and we just came up with quite a list. And I was like, I think it surprised us ourselves. We were like, oh, this is actually quite a lot of things we can do. So the stuff doesn't even come in, so we don't even have to declutter it. So I think this is a win-win.
It's all about changing your mindset in terms of stuff, isn't it, really? And really thinking about it. And there's no more time any critical than when you are hyper-focused on that decluttering project. You do not want anything to sabotage your efforts. And so number one then, Ingrid, what's the first thing that I think it's a bit obvious, this one, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's something that a lot of people love to do.
Yes, a lot of people love going to car boot sales or yard sales or charity shops, or kind of, if you feel a bit like a bargain hunter, you're like, oh, I got this really good deal on this really kind of thing that might have been a lot more expensive in the shops. So they drive to them, they go to them, they make a day out of it. And before you know it, you've got a car full of stuff with stuff you actually didn't even plan on buying in that morning.
In England, then, we have car boot sales, which is different to what they have in the States. I'm not sure. You and I have not got any experience of Australia, so we don't know what happens there or other parts of the world. But certainly in our country, we have car boot sales, which means that we tend to drive to a place where there are other people with their car boots open, with tables set up, with lots of stuff on it and lots of different items, clothes, all kinds of random stuff on there that people are selling. In America, it works differently, and people drive around from home to home and people set up things in their drive. It's a much better idea, to be fair, and easier, and people put signs up to say where the yard sales are that weekend. But it's a hobby. You know, car booting and yard sales are a hobby for a lot of people, and that can be a little bit dangerous, particularly when you're decluttering. That often is why we need to declutter, because we've been going at our hobby of car boot sales or yard sales a little bit too fervently.
What's the second one, Leslie, we could avoid?
Again, a really obvious one. We're going to come on to ones that are a little bit less obvious in a minute, aren't we? But a really obvious one is kind of avoid the shops. I mean, it's easier said than done, isn't it? But avoid the shops, and in particular, avoid the shops when there's all those things that are enticing you into that bargain hunting psychology that we just spoke about. So when there are big sales, Black Friday sales, Boxing Day sales, because what we do on those days is we don't really shop intentionally. We shop based on price. And so we shop because it's cheap. Would we buy it full price? Possibly not, but we buy it because we think that we're getting a bargain. And that's quite a dangerous psychology when you love stuff.
You know what? I think also you could kind of swept away in the moment a little bit. You know, when there's like Boxing Day sales and everybody's like waiting for the doors to open, there's a bit of a hype there. I mean, I've never done this before, but Boxing Day, I'm actually sleeping in. I'm not going shopping. But you see it on television. You see the people kind of trying to wrestle themselves into the shop and then trying to run to rails and grab stuff. And I think what you really need to do is at that moment ask yourself, why am I here? What am I trying to achieve here? Am I just grabbing random things because they're at 70% off? If you've got a good deal in the shop and it's a sale on, and you're like, okay, I need to, replace my television because your television broke down. You have to buy a new television. You can wait until the sale so you get a really good deal. That's not what we're talking about. If we're talking about getting sucked into the hype because other people are like trying to grab things off you or get to an item first. And it's a bit almost like it turns into half a sport to get as much stuff as cheap as possible. But then you end up with bags and bags full of stuff in your house that never gets looked at again because you actually maybe not even tried it on. You didn't even know if you liked the fabric, if it looked good on you, and all of those kinds of things. So that's what we're talking about here, aren't we, Leslie?
I've just got this vision in my mind of you at a Boxing Day or a Black Friday sale wrestling people off when you're trying to grab your cheap TV. And I think you'd be a little bit scary, I'm not going to lie. But when you see those people on TV, Boxing Day is the day after Christmas Day, just in case you didn't know. And people just go crazy for it. And it's like Black Friday sales were in the States then, isn't it, really, which is the day after Thanksgiving Day. So the theme there, isn't there? It's a day after a big holiday or whatever. People get into fights and like crazy stuff, isn't it, that you see on the TV. But I've not, my son's birthday is on Boxing Day. So I've not been to the Boxing Day sales for years and years and years. And I'm glad, to be honest, because I think intentional shopping, which we're big advocates of, which really means thinking about what you want to buy before you go out and buy it, or thinking about, right, okay, well, if I'm going to go and get something new today from the shops, what's going to go out of my wardrobe? Intentional shopping goes completely out the window when we get wrapped up in the moment of finding a bargain.
You know what? I know some people just love, after Christmas to go into the sales, and I'm like, that's my worst nightmare. I try not to go to the shops at that time because maybe it's because I like really tiny shops when I'm shopping, and I don't know, it all feels a bit chaotic to me. So maybe that's just not for me, but that does help with stuff coming into my house, I must admit. But it's not only the shops itself, Leslie, it's also the emails, because we are now all signed up to the shops where we shop, and they say, oh, can we just email you the receipt? And then they have your email address, and then they start bombarding you with 70% off today or 30% off today, or we got a Blue Cross sale, or we got a special Mother's Day sale, whatever it is. And then when you open your emails, you're like, oh, just let me have a quick look, see what the sales items are. But what happens, you see maybe one or two sale items, you then got sidetracked to the other pages on their website, and before you know it, you've got a basket full of stuff.
Exactly. I mean, the most important thing really with this is it's about knowing your own behaviors, isn't it? And understanding your own behaviors. So know whether or not you are that person that is going to get wrapped up in the moment and buy something that you don't need. And there are plenty of people out there equally that will go to the Boxing Day sales, will shop completely intentionally, will buy all the birthday presents, Christmas presents for next year, whatever that might look like, or might have stored up money to spend after Christmas. I'm not spending before, I'm spending it all after. That is intentional spending. So this is not everybody. So we're not saying don't do any of these things, because some of these things are fun. I don't think the Boxing Day sales will be much fun, to be fair. But a lot of these things are fun. Car boot sales for a lot of people are fun because, as I said, it's a hobby for people, but you just need to understand your own behaviors before you go. And if you are on a decluttering mission, sometimes it's not helpful if you do have that personality that means that you love that bargain.
Another one we wanted to talk about is samples in shops, isn't it, Leslie? The obvious example here is you go to the makeup counter to buy a new mascara or a new lipstick, and they're like, oh, it is buy 3, you get the cheapest 3. Or if you spend £25, you get this makeup bag for free. And then they try and give you other bits. Or you go to the perfume counter to buy a regular perfume, and they're like, here, try this sample, and here's a new cream, and here is a new little perfume bottle that you can try out, because they want to give you all this stuff. And that's where we really say that is always a very, very slippery slope, isn't it? To end up with lots of random stuff.
I think that the problem in this one with this is not necessarily the samples, it's the enticing you to buy another product to get the samples, if that makes sense. So the samples, of course, add to the clutter as well. But in principle, you can use those up. Again, if you're very clever with this, I do get samples. If I'm buying 2 products, I will get that. I very rarely like the gift bag that it comes in, so that will go straight to the charity shop. But I will use up the sample. So there is an element of that which is good. It's nice to try new perfumes. So it's not really a problem in itself. But you've already made a decision. Actually, I came in for one thing and I've bought 2 things or 3 things because it just seemed like a no-brainer to do that. So then you're getting an excess of stuff that you don't need, buying things that you don't need. So it completely flies in the face of intentional shopping again, doesn't it? But again, even with those samples, you then have to be very, very organized and find a way to use up those samples. And so if you've not got that system in place, I have got that system in place. So therefore, I'm not averse to getting samples at makeup counters because I know that they will come into general use, or I'll give some to my daughter that she will use or whatever. Again, it's about knowing your own behaviors and having systems in place to work with these things that we're getting.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting because we see it all the time, Leslie, that our clients and the members in our membership, they have lots of stuff in their house that they haven't used up. And one of our members, she did a bathroom declutter, but when we talk about toiletries, and she actually found out she had so many products that she didn't have to buy any new stuff for 7 months. She did not spend 1 penny on toiletries because in our bathroom course that she did in our membership, she followed our structure, realized how much excess of stuff she had. And she was like, I can't even believe it. This decluttering has really helped me focus on what I want to use and what I have. And then she just saved an incredible amount of money in the end. So she was like talking to us about it in our membership forum. And she was like, I am so happy that I'm doing this course because I've saved myself tons of money as well. And I'm getting much better in realizing which products I do like to use. And I'm getting so much better at intentional shopping and not kind of taking other bits and bobs along when I'm in the shops anyway.
It's just reshifting that focus, isn't it? And she has changed her mindset completely over the months, and it is really focusing down on what you have and wastefulness and things that you've picked up and using things up. But it's so brilliant, isn't it, to see that extra element of decluttering, which is to save money, which sometimes we completely forget about. We focus on the decluttering and the stuff that's going out, and we don't focus on the money that we're saving, which is a huge, huge benefit of decluttering. One other thing that's very much related to samples and things like that is takeaways. So when you go to KFC or go to McDonald's or go to a fast food place, quite often you grab like a whole bunch of napkins, you grab sauces, you grab straws, and sometimes you grab more than you need, don't you? Or a takeaway gives you extra things as well. And what we then do is we keep them in our fridges, don't we? We keep them to one set. Oh, we'll use that McDonald's sauce next week, or we'll use that extra mayonnaise that they gave us, or we'll use that salt packet. We all know whether we're guilty of this. It's like being a little magpie, really. We just can't help taking anything that's free. We have this obsession with free. And so those kind of things completely clutter up our homes. The bottom line is a sachet of salt that you've got for free from somebody is not going to make or break your finances, but it will add to your clutter. So again, it's about being mindful before you accept those things. Also, things like leaflets on streets. If people are constantly handing out leaflets to you, don't take them if you don't want them, because you've got to deal with that when you get home, and that's going to add to your paper clutter as well. So there are so many things where the decisions are almost taken out of our hands, and we have to be super strong, don't we, to say no.
And another one that I wanted to discuss is the hangers from shops that we get. Even without asking, they pack the clothes in, they take the hangers off, and they want to put the hangers in your bag. I'm always watching them like a hawk when I'm like, and I already now say in advance, can I leave the hangers behind here, please? I don't want the hangers, because I know that I've got my nice thin velvet hangers that I really like. And the only thing that I'm going to do, if they give me the hangers, I'm going to come home, take the clothes off, hang them on my velvet hangers, and I'm going to throw away the plastic hangers. And for me, that feels super wasteful. So now I try to be in front of that, and instead of taking it and then me having to do it, I'm like saying to the shop person, can I please leave them here? And they don't mind at all, because they will reuse them. And that's another job that you then don't have to deal with. If you are thinking about a wardrobe declutter, or if you are thinking about if this is something you can do, have a look at your current hangers, see how does that look. If your hangers are all a mishmash and your wardrobe looks really messy, maybe it's time to have a look at those hangers, and then when you go shopping, leave them behind in the shops.
Because hangers really do add to clutter. They really do. Like most people have got a huge excess of hangers that they don't need. And it's a real mishmash of hangers. I mean, we're real advocates, aren't we, if you can, to do a hanger swap, to have uniform hangers, because aesthetically it looks better. But it's an expensive move for a lot of people because it can run to, you'd be surprised in your home just how many hangers you've got when you look at your whole family. It runs to hundreds of hangers normally. And so that's an expensive thing to do. So we always suggest to do it gradually, but really this mishmash of horrible shop given plastic hangers doesn't really help, does it?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, definitely get used to saying no to the hangers.
Another thing, and this might be a tricky one because it is these little markets, Leslie, these Christmas markets and craft markets and farmers markets. And they always have these beautiful little stands, and they have you try samples of food and drinks, and they're like, and everything looks so good. That can be quite a tricky one to kind of say, okay, I'm not going to try and buy anything here because it all looks so nice, doesn't it?
It looks so nice. It's small traders. You really want to do it. Things that are quite ingenious and clever, shiny new things. So yeah, ideal home show type scenarios, craft fairs, as you say, Christmas markets, farmers markets. They're a real tough one. Now, it's really hard because this is definitely slap bang in our social world, isn't it? So we do these things with our families, with our friends for fun. And so it's slightly different, I think, than going to, a lot of people shop for fun in normal shops. But then going to a Christmas market or a farmer's market feels like a treat, doesn't it? Because it's wrapped up in other things. It's wrapped up in food and drink as well. Often they're at certain times of the year. So this is a tough one. So what we're not saying is don't go to the ideal home show, don't go to a farmer's market, don't go to a craft market. Because that's a shame not to do that and not to experience it. But again, you have to know your own behaviours and you have to be very, very strong that you don't come away with lots of things that you don't need.
I went to a lovely Christmas market in my daughter's school last year, and I actually spotted something that I thought, oh, that might be really nice. So I clocked it in my head. I didn't immediately go over and bought it. I kind of clocked it and I thought, you know what, I'm going to have to think about it. And while I was wandering around, I thought, it was a stall with handmade soaps, and she did an amazing job. They looked amazing. I thought, you know what, those are perfect little gifts to bring to my mother-in-law and my sister, because we're seeing all of them over Christmas. And I actually, at the end, when I finished walking around, I went back to that store and then I thought about, okay, who can I buy this? So I didn't just go over and randomly bought 3 or 6 bars of soap, not knowing what I was going to do with them. But I thought about it, and then I went back and I went, okay, I would like to pick out 3. And she had a deal like 3 for £10 or something like that. I can't remember. But so I bought 3. I knew who I was going to give them to. I really felt good about supporting a local business, but I didn't then go to 6 other places and pick up all these other handmade things. I mean, fantastic things, but I just thought I want to be realistic in what I'm actually going to use myself or what I'm going to give to other people. So maybe what could be really helpful is to set yourself a little bit of a budget. If you go to these types of things and you know you love it and you're going to spend lots of money, just set yourself a budget and go, you know what, my budget for today is, I don't know, £10 or £20 or £50 or $50 or however much it is. And that's my max. So if I know I'm normally always overspending at these type of things, I'm going to just gradually cut down on it. And instead of spending normally $100, I'm only going to try and spend $50. And that way you can also then work on getting less clutter in your house. And you know what? I love when you go to a farmer's market and you can buy this homemade apple juice. So yeah, I love that kind of thing because those are also consumables. And I know we all like apple juice, so I know it will be used up. And then it makes much more sense instead of buying something random like a chutney, which looks good. We are not a chutney family. So why would I buy a jar of chutney that I try on a piece of cracker and think, oh, that's actually nice. But I know that pot of chutney is going to be in my fridge for months to come. Nobody's going to touch it. And then it feels immediately like, oh, you know, that was a waste. So I think it's also thinking it through a little bit. So by all means, go to a craft market, go and support your local small shops because we love that. But it's about being a bit strong yourself, assigning yourself a budget and really thinking what is going to happen with this stuff.
I always sit here sometimes and think that me and you are just complete killjoys, aren't we? Like, you can't go shopping, you can't go to a farmer's market, you can't do anything that's fun at all. It's all about decluttering. I think it's about knowing your trigger points, isn't it? And understanding what you're going to be like. I mean, I'm like you. It's interesting when you were talking about the cheese and the chutney or whatever. My initial thing was chutney, because they say, oh, try this, give you a crack with beautiful cheese and beautiful chutney. And of course, like, you eat chutney if you go out to a restaurant with beautiful cheeses and things like that. But I'm not going to get cheese and biscuits out at home. Do you know what I mean? But I would still probably be in that mindset. Oh, it's nice, that chutney. Let's get a little bit of this chutney and have cheese and cracker. You know, something they would never, ever do. But you do get carried away in the moment, don't you? So that's what it's all about. And these are things where other people's, there's a compulsion there, I think. This is the point. There's a compulsion, isn't there, to spend. So the last thing that we want to talk about, again, this is really hard because this is very, very social. And it's also talking about your friends. So the last thing that we wanted to talk about was things like candle parties, betterware parties, Jamie Oliver parties, and Summers parties even. All of those types of parties that you get invited to by your friends, where the idea is that they are going to get commission from anything that you spend. And so by our nature, we are going to feel obliged to spend something, aren't we? If you went there and you didn't buy anything, you would feel as if you would be judged by your friend, rightly or wrongly, for not having spent any money. And so the amount of those parties that I've been to and bought things that I really didn't want because I felt obliged to is a lot. But equally, as you and I were talking about, there are things that I bought from those kind of parties that have been fantastic, that are still in use today. So it's finding that, do you actually need it? Are you going to use it? That kind of thing, of really being honest with yourself at the time and trying not to get wrapped up in this moment of, I'm going to have to buy something here because I'm going to feel obliged. It's tough, isn't it? It's a really tough psychology to get over. What do you think?
Oh my gosh. I haven't been to a lot of those parties because I think I'm always just very careful, because I know I feel then obliged I need to buy something. So I'm always quite careful. But I went to a Jamie Oliver party, gosh, many, many years ago. My friend organized it. And I think I went to two of them. She did one, and then about a year and a half later, she did another one. And I actually, at each of those parties, I bought one thing. I still have them. I love them. I use them. I think they're great quality. So, but I really thought about it. I didn't, during the kind of presentation, already go, okay, I want to have that and that and that. And I thought to myself, you know what? Yes, I do feel obliged to buy something. If I'm going to buy something, I want to buy one thing. And if it doesn't have to be cheap or expensive, I want to buy one thing, but what is something that I can truly need and use and love? And I did well, because the two things that I bought, I still have, and they've been absolutely brilliant. And one of them comes out like on a some sort of mixing bowl, comes out on a weekly basis. The other one is a large cheese board, because my husband and I do love a crackers and cheese, Leslie. We eat it all the time. That's why I'm not
just no chutney.
No chutney. And so that comes out like more when we have like friends over, and we kind of get nibbles and crackers and cheese, and we've got the big cheese board that I actually think is fantastic. So, but I'm really mindful when I go to a party that I don't end up buying stuff that I don't need. So I kind of try not to put myself in that situation as much. So that helps as well.
I think it's very similar, actually, thinking about it, to when you're on some kind of weight loss programs, things like Slimming World and Weight Watchers and that kind of thing. And one of the things that they talk about all the time in classes is if other people trying to sabotage your efforts. And so even though people know that you're on this kind of Slimming World journey or whatever that might be, they'll try and ply you with chocolate biscuits or make a meal that's clearly not Slimming World friendly. And it's all about preempting that sometimes. And so sometimes the brave thing to do would be to say, do you know what? I really, really want to come to the party, but I'm really focusing at the moment on having less. And so if it's okay with you, I probably won't buy anything. And just to preempt that and to take that guilt out of it from the start. It's tough. Food is easier, I think, because people understand that it's a bit more tangible. I think it's important for other people to understand and to value the journey that you're going on if you're going through a big decluttering journey, and to respect that. And the only way that they're going to do that if you explain it to them.
I think that's actually a really good point. Or if they are used to you always buying and shopping, just say, I would love to come to your party, but yes, I am on a decluttering journey. So I know in previous parties I might have bought a lot, but I'm trying to be, really, really good. And I'm only going to buy 1 or 2 things instead of my normal 5, 6 or 7 or 8 things. So just so you know, and I think that can help really, really well with protecting yourself already a little bit. And
Yeah.
when you've said it out loud, then you for yourself have also accountability. Or maybe tell your friend, if your friend's coming, and say, I'm on a decluttering journey. Don't let me buy 6 things. If you see me buy 6 things, just before I put my credit card out, just say, hey, are you sure you're going to need all of this?
So now we've extracted all the fun out of everyone's life completely. Do we feel guilty about that, Ingrid? These are the things that you just really just need to stay home and declutter all day long and never go out and buy anything again. That's what we're saying. No, we're not.
No, we're actually not. I think I love going to a farmer's market. I love going to a Christmas market. I love, I don't shop a lot, but when I go, I really enjoy it. I'm just very mindful with how I spend my money and my time.
I suppose the point is, do you feel that you could go to one of those types of things and not buy anything and still get the same value out of it?
Yeah, I think so, because I always go a little bit for the food as well. So I want to try something new, or, they have a nice little place where you can try, I don't know, sausages from Germany, or drinks from a local farm, or you can try local wine, or, I think that for me, I think that's what I get my joy from as well, because I'm a bit of I wouldn't call myself a foodie, but I do love, trying different things. So for me, that's also part of it.
Yeah, but that's consumable. So food's easier, isn't it? Because it is consumable. And for the most part, we are going to use it. Although we do have to be careful with food as well. I mean, we've seen lots of excessive food from those kind of things as well.
Yeah.
And we've been decluttering too.
Yeah.
But I think it is a little bit easier than kind of general stuff that you get at little craft markets and craft fairs and Christmas fairs.
Yes, Leslie, it's all about being more mindful when shopping. And I don't think we're not killjoys at all. We do like going out. We do like having a little mooch around, but just a bit more measured. I think that's our message here, isn't it, Leslie?
Definitely.
All right. Well, listeners, what do you think? Has this episode made you think about your own behaviors? Are you thinking to myself, oh, God, these Ingrid and Leslie, they're just utter killjoys. This is not good for me. Or are you thinking, you know what? Actually, they have a point here. I'm going to have a little mull over this. I'm going to have a little think about this and think, what am I doing? What am I doing when I go out, when I go to a local farm or a garden center or to my shops? How do I behave? How do I justify this shopping to myself? What do I do when I get invited to a candle party? Do I always pick up the hangers? Do I always get the samples? We hope, the whole idea about this podcast, that we hope this has made you think about what it is that you do and where you can maybe avoid a couple of things so you don't bring all this clutter in your house. So that is the main message of this episode, and we hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks so much for taking the time to listen today. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please leave a review and tell us what you think about the show. And if you want to take your decluttering to the next level and you want our help and change your mindset like the member we spoke about, come and join us in our membership. You can find out more at members.declutterhub.com. If you'd like to get more tips and advice, please follow us on social media. We are on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook as @DeclutterHub. And we've got a lovely, supportive Facebook group where we chat all things clutter. Look for the Declutter Hub community on Facebook. If you don't want to miss the next weekly episode, subscribe to the Declutter Hub podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio, and it will pop into your notifications each Friday. See you next time.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Declutter Hub podcast. Check out declutterhub.com for more inspiration and don't forget to tune in next week.